right, everybody, welcome back. We're going to be jumping into some pretty complex stuff today.
Yeah.
We're going to be taking a look at the Iran-Israel conflict.
Right.
Specifically, what happened in 2024.
Yeah.
You know, this is something that I think a lot of our listeners are probably keeping an eye on, you know, in the news and stuff. It's been a pretty major
It has.
global event. And
Absolutely.
really, I think 2024 was a turning point
It was.
in this conflict. You know, we've had decades and decades of this kind of shadow war. And we saw in 2024, it kind of went from that into something much more direct and open.
Yeah, and I think what's so fascinating about this particular conflict is that we really did see it move from this proxy conflict where Iran and Israel were mostly engaging each other through groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, and it was all very kind of below the surface, below the radar. But in 2024, both sides just seemed to sort of drop the pretense and engage much more directly.
Absolutely. It started with a pretty major event, April 1st, 2024.
Right.
Israel carries out an airstrike on an Iranian consulate in Damascus.
Right.
Now, of course, you know, we see airstrikes
all the time,
fairly often in that region. But this one was different.
It was different.
I mean, this wasn't just about taking out a building or, just a regular sort of military target.
This was a high-level strike. This was a targeted assassination.
Yes.
Several high-ranking Iranian officials were killed, including members of the Quds Force, which is the elite overseas branch of Iran's Revolutionary Guard.
Right.
So this was a very serious escalation by Israel and really a direct hit on Iran's, security apparatus, their power structure.
Absolutely. And so, a couple weeks later,
Iran retaliates.
Yeah. I mean, how could they not? I mean, they launched over 300 missiles and drones at Israel.
Unprecedented.
And these attacks were coming from Iran itself. They were coming from Lebanon. They were coming from Syria, Yemen.
Yeah.
It was basically Iran activating its entire network.
Yes.
Showing
their reach.
Yeah.
Capability.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine being on the receiving end of that? It just, an unbelievable number.
It was designed to send a message, right? They wanted to show that they could not be intimidated, that they had the capability to strike back.
Yeah.
And they could do it in a coordinated fashion.
And it was definitely coordinated.
It was.
I mean, that's a pretty massive operation.
Right.
But here's where I think things get really interesting.
Okay.
You have this massive barrage of missiles and drones. Right. And Israel intercepts something like 99% of them.
Right.
Which is
almost unbelievable.
Just mind-blowing.
It is.
It's this system called Iron Dome, which is basically a network of radars and interceptors that can take out
short-range rockets, mortars, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And it's been incredibly effective. One
of the most effective systems in the world. Really changed the calculus of warfare in that region.
I mean, arguably it probably prevented a huge number of casualties. It saved countless lives.
Yeah.
But it didn't stop the back and forth.
Yeah.
A few days after this massive barrage, Israel retaliates.
Okay.
But they don't retaliate in the same way. They focus on very specific targets, mainly air defense systems in Syria and Lebanon.
Okay.
So they're not going after, population centers. They're not trying to flatten Tehran.
Yeah.
This is about sending a signal, right? Saying, look, we can hit you.
Yeah.
We have the capability to strike back.
Right.
But we're choosing to be restrained at this point.
So it's a tense few months after that.
It is very tense.
And then in October, things
explode again.
Yeah, it all kind of kicks off again.
Yes.
So first you have these assassinations.
Right.
Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran.
Okay.
And Hassan Nasrallah in Beirut.
Wow.
Now, if you're not familiar with those names, I mean, Haniyeh was the head of Hamas in Gaza.
Right. Very powerful figure.
Nasrallah was the leader of Hezbollah in Lebanon.
Right.
So these are major figures in Iran's network.
Instrumental in coordinating Iran's regional strategy.
Yeah, not just figureheads.
Right. These are the guys on the ground making things happen.
Right.
So their deaths were a huge blow to Iran.
Absolutely.
A real game changer.
Yeah.
And then, of course, shortly after that,
Then we have another barrage of missiles.
Yes, over 200 this time.
Wow.
Aimed at Israel.
I mean, it's clearly...
It's an act of revenge, right? They're trying to...
They're lashing out.
Yeah, show that there's still a force to be reckoned with.
Right.
But here's the thing. Again, Israel intercepts most of the missiles.
Right. Iron Dome doing its job.
But there's another element here that's really different this time around.
What's that?
The international response is massive.
Oh, yeah.
This time, it's not just Israel saying, hey, this is an act of aggression.
Right.
You have the U.S., you have the UK, France, even Jordan.
Yeah.
Coming out very strongly.
Very strongly.
Condemning the attacks.
Yeah.
And offering Israel both military and diplomatic backing.
That's a big deal.
This is a major shift.
It is.
Because before, there was always this kind of
hesitancy.
Yeah, a lot of countries were hesitant to,
to get involved.
Get involved too much,
Right.
But now they're like, no, we're drawing a line in the sand.
They're taking sides.
And this is a turning point.
It is.
I mean, this is really, I think, what sets the stage.
For what happens next.
For what happens next, yeah. Because just a few weeks later, on October 26th, Israel launches this massive airstrike against Iran.
Directly against Iran.
I mean, over 100 aircraft were involved.
Oh.
They hit radar installations, missile production facilities, anything that could be used.
Anything they could find.
To launch future attacks.
Right. They were going after the infrastructure that allowed Iran to project power in the region.
And it was a huge gamble.
It was.
For Israel.
A huge gamble.
Because they're basically taking the fight directly to Iran's doorstep.
Right, to their door.
At this point.
Yeah.
They're not messing around.
They're not.
They're saying, okay, you want to
play this game.
Play this game. We're going to play it.
We're going to play it on our terms.
Yeah.
And we're going to go after the heart of your military infrastructure.
And it really shows that, Israel was...
They shifted their strategy.
Yeah, they were willing to take a much more aggressive approach.
Absolutely.
They were no longer content with just
defending them.
They were going on offense.
Yeah.
They were taking the fight to Iran.
So here we are, beginning of 2025.
Right.
Looking back on a year that, totally changed the game.
It did.
In the Middle East.
Fundamentally changed it.
This was a proxy war fought in the shadows.
Mm-hmm.
And now it is.
An open confrontation between two heavily armed, technologically advanced nations.
Each with their own powerful allies.
Exactly.
I mean, what does that mean?
That's the big question, right?
Yeah.
What does it mean for the region? What does it mean for the world?
What are the stakes here?
The stakes have never been higher.
Right. I mean, because with this direct confrontation comes the potential for miscalculation.
Absolutely.
For unintended escalation. Things can spiral out of control very quickly.
Yeah.
And once you start down that road, it's very hard to turn back.
Yeah. I mean, imagine a scenario where either side feels cornered,
Backed into a corner.
Backed into a corner where they feel like they have to respond.
Overwhelming force.
Overwhelming force.
Yeah, it's the danger.
It's a terrifying thought.
It is.
Because, I mean, we saw
how quickly things escalated in 2024.
Right.
How easily international actors got involved.
Yeah.
It's not just Iran and Israel anymore.
No.
It's a whole network.
Yeah.
Of alliances and rivalries.
Yeah, it's like, the whole region is this tinderbox.
It is.
And 2024 was the spark.
Yeah, and that's the question I would leave you with.
Okay.
What happens if this conflict continues to escalate?
Yeah.
What happens if Iran or Israel feel they have no choice?
Right.
But to gamble everything on a decisive strike?
Mm-hmm.
Could it drag in other major powers?
Yeah.
Could we see a regional conflict turn into something much, much larger?
It's definitely a sobering thought.
It is.
It's something that I think, we all need to be...
We need to pay attention to this.
Paying attention to and thinking about.
Absolutely.
Because the events of 2024 weren't the ending.
They were just the beginning.
This is just the beginning of the story.
Yeah.
So, stay informed, everybody.
Stay informed.
Keep up with the news. Understand the complexities because things are...
They're going to keep developing.
Going to get more...
Absolutely.
Complicated, I think, before they get better.
I think so, too.
So, thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we will see you next time.
See you then.